It really is a terrible thing that happens, and it happens pretty often, especially because addicts are hanging out with other addicts, and then it's just like a vicious cycle that continues.
And how do you know your friend's gonna experience an overdose?
Well, it actually happens pretty quick. First, they start to get really lazy and tired, and their pupils get really small, like a pinpoint, and they're freezing cold, and their breathing starts to get shallow, and their heartbeat lowers. One time I had a friend whose heartbeat lowered to 30 beats per minute, but thank God they have drugs to combat that.
Like?
Well, there's Narcan. The best one is Narcan, and basically it's just a nasal spray that combats the effects of an overdose and brings them back, thankfully. But there are also other drugs used to fight narcotic addictions like methadone, buprenorphine, and naltrexone, but unfortunately not everyone's lucky enough to have those.
Right, so the origin of opioids lies with the opium poppy, which was initially developed into these kinds of drugs for its pain-relieving capabilities. Fentanyl, though, is a synthetic opioid. It's structurally similar to morphine, but one of the myriad issues with opioids is that their capacity for addiction scales almost directly with their potency. And so with something like fentanyl that can be anywhere from 50 to 200 times as powerful as morphine, it's easy to see why this drug is responsible for so many more overdoses.
And what are the health risks that come with fentanyl use?
I mean, take your pick: brain damage, damage to this cardiothoracic region, the heart and lungs. So brain damage can lead to heart and lung damage and vice versa and so forth throughout the body.
And the short-term effects?
Well, euphoria, obviously, but also confusion, discombobulation, really. And then a lot of the physical effects stem from the central nervous system. And in the case of opioids, specifically with a slowed or depressed central nervous system. So slowed heartbeat, breathing, which can often lead, especially as you approach the threshold of overdose, to a loss of consciousness.
Sounds super risky to me. How is this affecting our population now?
Well, so I think it was in 2004, we had around 30,000 overdose deaths in America that year. And now, just in 2020, I want to say the uptick was like 38% almost, or even maybe just a little over. Now I think it's around 136 people that are dying a day from overdose in America, which is reaching towards 50,000 a year. It's too much.
People tend to use to relieve pain. It puts you in a euphoric state where you forget all your pain and problems, but you gotta be careful how much you take. It's hard to figure out the dosage when you get it off the street. You don't know what's laced and what's not, and that's how it gets you.
How do people get hooked?
A lot of people are prescribed it from a doctor and just crave it more and more when their tolerance goes up. They can also have other drugs that are laced with it. It's also cheaper than heroin, so even though it's more dangerous, people that tend to have less money end up buying fentanyl.
Hey, I have a few questions about your past occupation. Why do you think fentanyl has grown throughout the years?
It's cheaper than heroin, and it's stronger. It's easier. If you're selling it, you can put it in your coke, you can put it in your methamphetamines, you can put it in your heroin, and it makes it last longer, and you're just paying for your buck.
And what does it mean if the drug is hot?
That just means it's super fresh on the market and very potent.
All right. And have you ever tried your fentanyl products?
No way, man. That's way too high of a risk to overdose.
And last question, how is this fentanyl obtained?
Well, it's a Schedule II drug, so that means doctors can prescribe it. You just can't get a refill for it. But if you're not a patient, you just get the ingredients for it and you illegally synthesize it yourself.